I guess maybe we started off with like, how are you feeling about everything AI? I mean, you're pretty prolific.
Thank
You're
you.
dropping bangers like every day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's how I feel, right? It's like it feels like there's a a sense that sometimes the way I think about it is like it reminds me of an era when, a technology is released and there's like this moment in time where you're able to use it. And if you don't take advantage of that moment, you may not be able to create something. That's how it feels. And that could be a bit of an anxiety, you know? I think that's the way my mind works, where it's like, oh man, this is too good to be true. Like, I have all these ideas stored, like maybe there's a way to actually get these things out quickly and also express it in this medium. And so the tool is so exceptional that it feels like there's this need to pursue the that level of output. I think also it plays into the social media aspect of feeling like how can you generate something that works within the that form of media driven space and like get people to feel like they're a part of something too. So I'm doing multiple things at once. I think I'm definitely expressing kind of like an anxious rhythm of like, oh, I should do this and I should do this and I should do this, but then also thinking like, okay, there's this sort of cinematic component of AI film and the way that you can actually now approach these things, but also it's not a movie, it's not uh on that level yet, but what can it be and where can it evolve to? So these kind of short form, quick messages feel kind of interesting as a way to produce content today that feels like something somebody can see once or twice every day and still kind of feel like they're picking up that you're world building with limited access, you know?
Well, that's interesting. That is a
Yeah.
question I had. Like that component you're bringing up and the social media kind of just that has a in general, social media has an ambience of anxiety, like in FOMO, like,
Right.
am I doing enough? Am I
Right.
keeping up? It's
Right.
just nonstop.
Right.
Do you feel like it, if not for that, you would be pursuing longer pieces, given that you clearly are making like cinematic, these shorts? Like, or are the tools not there yet? Do you feel like you're waiting for the tools to get there to do longer pieces, or is it, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm like pondering the two things at once because I see, I've worked, in working on longer form ideas, you hit the roadblock a lot harder. You have experience with that and recognizing that, the devil's in the details, and you start to actually get to a point where suddenly you really have to start to become creative. And this is where the actual, everyone has their opinions about the lack of creativity in in AI generative work. But the creativity comes right at the wall, right? And
Mm.
once you get to this point where you realize like, okay, I can't do exactly that, then there's no point of imitating exactly that. I have to like lean into its limitations and accept the reality of that aspect of AI video. Um, so I think I forget where I was going here, but we were talking about why not to pursue, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's trying to do both at the same time. You have to be honest with yourself, at least in my mind. Hey, if I'm trying to create like a visual studio or somebody who's competing directly with these other studios that are going like, oh, okay, we need to make an AI aspect of our production studio. So then like you or I or other artists are able to go like, wait, I can do that too now because I have access to the same tools that they have access to. I just obviously have less of a budget. But then, like, okay, what are they going to be thinking about the rhythm of what they're producing with that a new tool? Okay, it is on a social media platform. How am I going to compress ideas and expand ideas? And then hopefully, I think the way, at least my limited understanding of how the business side of film is everyone's complaining about IP being, the same repetitive IP. We're doing things that, everyone already knows. And so that to me, there's a sense that they don't want to do the new stuff because there's not a built-in fan base, right? And so with social media, you have this ability to
Mm,
build out a fan base or build out something that people are genuinely interested in. Because you may have 10 ideas and people are only interested in two of them. And your favorite thing may not be what people like, but you then can start to see what others like. And, on a business level, you want to lean into that at times to build this foundation for your other ideas that may not be as liked by all people. So to me, it's like create short form pieces to expand an audience, to encourage seeing this wanting of a world or a character. And then you have now affirmation that, okay, we can move forward with, let's say, a 10-minute or a 20-minute short, because I'm recognizing that people are adapting to that content. So, you're trying to be an artist and a business at once. I think that's what's pushing my mentality. I want to express myself creatively the best I can, um, but I also want to be realistic about, like, what do people like and what do people not like? Because how people respond is always different than how you are thinking.
yeah. And I mean, it's kind of funny, like, and when I like clip moments from this, I'll like show parts of like your work, and I mean, you make like very esoteric like work,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's like people should understand, like, we're not talking about, like, you're not making like Marvel action stuff, you're making pretty
right,
esoteric work, which is great, which
right,
is amazing, and
right,
work that probably would never get funding in this day and age. It
exactly,
wouldn't
right,
exist if
right,
not for this new technology, which
right.
is to me, I mean, the it just shows the potential, and that's kind of the power of this tech to create, work that would never have been made otherwise. But it's interesting,
Yeah,
like, you're still like, but this version might not be quite as palatable to people as this, so I'll lean into this, build
yeah,
the
especially
audience, and then
because this topic, like you said, esoterica, and the tarot, and kind of all these things that, the Canticle of the Hollow is like this one, world that I'm building out that's obviously very focused in that direction. And uh, the way I'm thinking about it is entirely different the way I think that I'm seeing the audience respond to it. They have their own uh, access to that knowledge. Like, some people know everything, some people feel like it's familiar, but they don't know what but that's exactly the power of that type of information. But I felt like, I'm very into that topic, and I'm going like, okay, clearly right now, it's funny is with AI generative video, dark fantasy is something that is, like, I think, being revived. It's an aesthetic that I think a lot of people clearly are holding onto their heart here. It's like it's coming out. Oh, I love that. I love that. And so what if you're combining that aesthetic approach with real literature that is dealing with some of the influences that fall into that world, but not being too on the note or too deep in the weeds of the information, but somehow the world on screen is acting as like a filter for the backdrop that's influencing each reference. So I'm not going to necessarily just completely say, oh, this is Oedipus, or this is Cassandra, or whatever character that I may be pulling from. It's going to be it's inferring through the archetype of the character in the video, and then the audience is responding. Oh, I think this is this person. This is the Sybil. This is this. I find that to be fun now. When I first started the world, it was very much like I made a trailer. It was just like one trailer that was no words, and it was just vibe and just a feeling that was music and video. And then I go, okay, this is really cool. And like it's actually maybe more in line with something I'd like to make all the time. But then ultimately, I know that people gravitate towards character. So, like, how can you take the characters that maybe show up in these little blips and then just start building them out one by one, and then having one of these videos kind of get more traction? I go, okay, I think I'm seeing that people are positioning themselves in the piece now, trying to understand it, trying not to, whatever. There suddenly becomes a back and forth about what this is saying. one person is saying it's saying this, the other person is saying is that. And with these topics, it can get kind of out there. But I think that then is then the next level of the work where it's trying to create a discussion and improve people's um, uh, awareness and literacy on the topics to then realize like how deep some of these ideas go, how awesome they are, and encourage people to look more into what this is or what that is. That would be the goal, I think, of that work is just to get people more interested in these ideas because I happen to be really infatuated with
Dude,
some of these
Alex,
topics from
this
antiquity.
is interesting because this is like a conversation that's come up with some other artists, and it's like
Mm,
interesting that the the kind of like cultural authorities have abdicated their responsibilities for
so
perpetuating the canon of our civilization. So now it's upon the artists to
yeah,
use these tools.
right,
I don't know if these tools maybe would exist if like Hollywood or whoever, the kind of repositories of our culture, like maintain good standing. It was like, because when I grew up, like you'd see old cartoons and they would have like opera songs and classical
right,
music and
right, right,
all
right.
kind of what you're saying, like they recontextualize the canon
Yes,
of classical literature and art for
right,
kids in
right,
cartoons. And but
right.
they don't do that anymore. You just get
No,
slop. So now artists
no,
like
no.
yourselves are recontextualizing like canonical, art and
Yeah,
history and culture
right,
for a new modern audience on fucking
right,
TikTok.
right,
Which
exactly.
is
And
sick.
like, yeah, and I think like that's the best you can do
Yeah.
is try to do that. And now, yeah, obviously now it seems like you're saying the I mean, it gets deep as far as like I think how far we've dug a hole, but the tentacles are strangling itself, and there was this necessity for, images on screen to start to take advantage of the power that they have. Somebody wanted to take advantage of the power of
Mm.
the image and controls that to deliver a message. And that message today is more, socioeconomic, sociocultural. It's not built in a broader historical context. It's built into a present context, which is fine, but we're not as uh, special and advanced as we think we are. A lot of these ideas have been dealt with before that
Mm.
would, I think, make more people realize that a contemporary life is not as exposed to the darkness as the past was. And it's important to get those ideas across because you have to live within the reality of knowing how far things can go to not always be scared. And I find that that's like what some of these works do. They kind of shock you. When you read even the Iliad or something, or like the context of like someone like Apollo, like knowing that it's not all. People go to the museum and see stuff and think it's you know uh, kind of like a dandy thing, it's beautiful, but like Apollo is gruesome. Like he
Mm.
brings the plague, like people are dying, people there's a lot of darkness that are attached to these characters that have kind of been uh simplified,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it happens naturally because you just lose touch with it's irrelevant. You read something like and they go, well, who cares? Why is it relevant to me today?
Right, right,
So
yeah.
that's what happens. But with these pieces, like you're saying, I think the point you made earlier is so good is that I definitely think about this where it's like you would never be able to make certain things today. People don't have the time or patience. And now with this technology, you can actually make more of the thing they don't want to make much more easily. You can lean into not having dialogue. You can lean into just having images. That's something that a studio is not going to necessarily want to put their money behind, right? And so that's a beautiful thing to me. Artists now can express themselves purely. There's no blockades. There's no, levels of influence that you have to go through. the contemporary system waters down the potential of expression and artist expression. There's always needs to be collaboration, and those kind of things can lead to amazing things as well, bigger than one person. But like, you don't want to hinder somebody from being able to express themselves. What you end up with is just like you said, a different type of slop. It's a slop that is just completely separated from any sort of soul or heart. I think that somebody needs to be able to throw up on the page or whatever.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind, and it's coming up too in these conversations, is like you're kind of describing like the rise of the auteur, or and they're
Hmm.
less they're it's so rare that auteurs get through Hollywood and let alone have success, and
Right,
we can name them and they're celebrated once they get through kind of like the get over the wall. But
right.
it seems to me like this technology serves auteurs really well. And I do have a question because I know you're a sculptor. I don't really know your work that well, but I'm curious kind of other disciplines you work in. Like, were you editing movies before this? Were you a filmmaker? Like, what were the kind of other tools or arts that you work in,
Yeah.
before
Well,
coming to
my
AI?
yeah, my background, education wise, is going through architecture school.
Oh,
So that's what formed uh, my design ethos, and kind of how I look at a lot of projects is, the architect beyond what we understand as an architect with buildings, but in a contemporary education, the architect becomes, I guess like the psychopomp, or the mystic between the digital realm and the physical realm, because you no longer are doing just handwritten. It used to be paper to physicality, mind to paper to physical. Now we have this digital component. So one first year of school, we were doing stuff on paper. They still had that, using pencil. But then pretty quickly we had to get into uh, using things like Rhino or these other kind of 3D programs. And so pretty quickly you understand this idea that your job is to take this digital artifact and bring it into reality. Um, and so coming from that end, I, was working with these types of these computer programs. That moved into like a 3D printing relationship, right? Because then you have a new tool that enters our zeitgeist that allows you to create physical objects quicker. So I gravitated towards that. Of course, I always like to bring everything from the hand into that world, but once you cross that threshold, it's over. Once I 3D print, I'm not going back.
hmm.
I just need to make sure that I'm pulling with me the things I learned along the way. Okay, so then now I'm 3D printing. This is how I'm getting into sculpture. Again, I'm always thinking about the digital to physical, digital to physical. And the AI is really just another, a digital program system and tool that evolves over in the last few years, first with the image generating stuff that you're kind of practicing on. As the video is coming in, it's the same mentality. Oh, wait a second. Here's a new tool that allows this kind of conversation between digital and physical to happen. And so it's really just in line with the way my mind thinks. But then I also have a background in like illustration, and I care about things like, graphic um, graphic novels, or illustrators like Moebius, or some of these different people who are big into probably my interest in sci-fi, and again these kind of fantastical worlds. That world building in general, right, is just something that is always sitting there in the background. So it's a combination of staying nose to the ground with the digital realm and making love to technology, right? Like that's the way I look at it. It's like people hate technology, but some people make love to technology, and you either accept it or you don't. But if you accept it, uh, there is a lot of power in it, and it's so much power, more than I remember with 3D printing. Now with sculpture, it was like, don't tell people you 3D print. Do not let people know that that was 3D
Wow.
printed,
Yeah.
because your hand now is not a part of, and then, that's BS
Right.
because anyone can do this, but not everyone's doing it. Okay. So it's not a like some people have the ability and time and awareness to do these things. So it's not that big of a deal, but there's still processes along the way that really make the difference. How are you going to bring something that is not in reality into reality? There's different ways to do it, but now you have this new tool. And then the choice. So with my sculpture work, a lot of the time there is that artifact of, so you would 3D print in like a plastic, and then you'd be casting in like a bronze or a plaster. And then there's that translation between the two where the final output still has these kind of visual remnants of the digital output, but then at the same time there's clearly processes of the hand, polishing, finishing, welding. I mean, there's way more to do with all this that has to get there. I'm kind of jumping around, but I remember even I've worked on uh, these shoe design projects because of my background in sculpture. And when AI started to develop there, that was kind of like early on a few years back coming out of COVID. And it was like, there was kind of this hesitancy, maybe like, is AI okay to use here or not? And my mentality was always like, who cares if it's the image? The image is one thing. Like, you need to now take this design and make it real. That's a whole nother story. That AI can't do all that. But AI can get an idea as a starting point, but then I can help you make it real by because I'm able to maybe look at an image and understand the materiality and the scale and how you do something. That's the next step with everything, right? And so I'm seeing the same ideas with all this stuff, and then now you get to AI and film, and like you hit your wall, and then ultimately, if you really wanted to make a show or a thing beyond something that you're seeing on your phone, it's going to take a lot more than just what we have here, of course. Real art is often grounded in the human in humanity. At the end of the day, somebody is the vessel for these ideas. And I'm not stupid. I think I'm aware of that. I'm very aware of all that. I just want to be able to express myself to get to the point to even have an opportunity,
Yeah.
and I don't know if the people online are bots or just fanatics or what it is, but it's like, I'm the independent artist, you're the independent artist. We're not a part of the studio.
I know.
I get that they're scared, and they're being told that someone's going to take their job, and but that's how it is with everything. You're a dentist, and the new thing comes out. If you don't know how to learn how to use that machine, when people go to your office, they go look around and they go, I think I'm going to a different dentist. Okay. I mean, I don't know that's kind of what goes on. So you got to adapt. So that's how I look at it. Learn the technology. You know well that the directors today are going like, oh,
Oh
how do
yeah.
I learn how to do this? I mean, I need to call somebody to do this because I don't want to deal with the studio anymore. I don't want to deal with them telling me I can't do this.
Yeah, you're kind of also like talk like kind of like highlighting this like the that unknowable aspect of creativity that creates the drive in artists to make something. And it occurs to me that as the technology and the tools become more accessible and they help you kind of realize an idea, it's possible that it like what's the is it Michelangelo, the painting of like God with the
Right, right,
finger?
right, right,
And
right.
people and even when things get easier, then it's like people kind of that's now their baseline and it's like too hard to open up, Mid Journey and type in a prompt. Like we're gonna get to
Yeah.
that point of people that it's just too it's always like something where but if and
Isn't
or
it already?
I mean,
Like at
yeah,
that
I mean,
point, right? Like, I mean, not
yeah,
everyone does this. I mean,
totally.
like,
You can give
like
them the
I'm shocked,
prompts.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But then at the same time, the way that people are processing it in the peanut gallery is that it is just that. It's
Right,
just prompts. And it's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, part of it is prompts, and you'd think more people would be doing it, and they're not.
right,
So,
right.
like, yeah, that's a part of it, but also what are you prompting? Why? What is it going to? I think right now a lot of AI artists are in a place where this is where this slop commentary comes out. There's this like fine line between what what even slop means, and I've we mentioned before that I think slop is more of a term that fits our generation beyond AI. You know, we the way we engage with content is sloppy. You know, it's like it used to be America's Home Video with a narrator, and he was standing there. Let's bring out the next video. Now it's just boom, boom, boom. Oh my God, send that to your friend, covered in text. You're like, let's send that to somebody. Oh, I didn't read the text. Like, what the hell does it say on the top of this thing? I didn't even. I just was reading the video. You know, whatever.
I do
So
that.
slop,
Guilty, guilty.
yeah, right. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh my God, that
Yeah.
text is a little, that's a lot. Okay, but that video is funny. So it's like I think the platform has generated the slop. It's I think it's a modern day version. You know, we have the brain rot. We have the 4chan. If you watch the evolution when we were on AIM and the G2G, and young people break down language into their own unique language to feel like they have something that someone else from the older generation can't dive into. I think that's like the Clockwork Orange concept of their lingo, where it's like you need to create something that separates yourself. And like I think now with the amount of videos that we grew up with, it just got out of control. And slop is not a product of AI, but AI is just the mirror of everything. It's just reflecting these kind of neuroses that people have now about things. There's just hand drawn slop. I mean, these comments from people, you're just like, this is unbelievable. Like these people really are believing it. You go to their page, you look, they're like, what? Like there's no one here. Like, what is this? Who are these people?
Yeah, man.
Then maybe that's the secret of social media that no that these companies don't want you to know.
I mean, yeah, dude. No, I think AI could be the antidote to slop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it can be.
I mean,
I
think
think it
about it. I
can
mean,
be.
if you, I mean, literally, like, there's no, like, again, I was saying, bringing it back, like Hollywood has abdicated their responsibility. It's up to like artists to use the tools to like give, you know, their fellow humans like fairy tales. And like you're saying, like to remind people of like the darker stories to help them make sense of their lives that can get very dark, but and are not reflected back in like hyper polished, edges, sanded off like slop that we get.
Yeah,
So
we can make mistakes. The studios can't. At least that's how I think they
right,
feel.
because the stakes are so high, the money's
Yeah,
so
their
high.
stakes are just too high. They're just
Yeah.
like creating, momentary, wormholes for people when they do the wrong thing, and everyone just gets sucked into like, oh, did you hear that? That, they did this, and did you hear what they said? So they're just working at a at a totally different level that is obviously strangling itself, and there's just no room for real expression. Uh, there's no. I love when Jodorowsky said, a spiritual warrior. Like, there's no room for that. Like, it's just, it's a whole nother game. That's what's going to be like. I think now there's going to be almost like not an underground, but like the people who are doing this, like they're going to be working in their own, just like their own free realm. And like that is going to feel more interesting eventually. I think once people get over the hump and start to get, like most people, they need to hear that somebody says it's okay to do it. Oh, he said it's okay. Oh, well, I like that guy. He said it's okay. Once all that happens and they start to see all these directors going like, oh yeah, if I could use the tool, I would use it, or and then they get accustomed to it. Once that happens, then I think you're going to see a totally a big revolution in the way it's not going to be about film anymore. This is going to evolve, I think, into something totally different than the cinema house, because I think
Hmm.
that is obviously it has history, it has an architecture and physicality that's built around even going from film to digital. There's a discrepancy. Suddenly, the room, the size of the room doesn't need to be that big for the film. Now, what do we do? Now, the theater itself changes, right? So the theater evolves around the technology. Um, that's going to be the same thing here, because suddenly we don't need the same middlemen to get to that point. Now the theater is going to open up beyond, I think, typical um, spaces, and it's going to go into anyone who's willing to support access to this type of a visual display, and that's going to, I think, bring a variety of new things. It's going to bring things that feel lowbrow. It's going to bring things that feel highbrow, but it's going to be free from, uh, the gateway of getting all the way to this system that has dollars and dollars behind it to function. We're gonna have to think outside the box and express differently. Yeah.
I mean, as much as I love theaters and I love seeing movies, I think it's so funny when you hear directors and actors saying like there's just something different about being in the theater. It's a special place because there's a really cool interview with the Coen brothers a while ago where they talked about they would see movies on TV, as kids in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. I would see movies like played like I probably saw Star Wars on TV, right? Or something
Yeah.
like
Right.
in the
Right.
90s
Right.
and like old movies from the 80s seen on TV or and they affected me just as much as seeing whatever in the movie. And then I think
Mm.
about the stuff you're making, which is deeply esoteric and spiritual, and I watch it on Instagram in a vertical
Right.
format, and it has just as much meaning and potency or more so than if I see some slop in the theater. So it's like I don't agree. I do love the theater. I love cinema. I love seeing things with other people, but that does not have some magical power to make something good or bad. It's
Right.
like if something's good, it's great to watch in the theater, but if something's good, it holds up if you watch it on your fucking laptop in a plane.
Right.
Like it really
Right.
does, man. Like there's
Right.
something embedded from the artist that's transmitted through a piece that
Right. Right.
do
No,
you I mean how do
totally.
you feel about yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's why with my project where it's Delphi Motion Pictures, it's like ultimately at baseline, it's motion pictures.
Hmm.
It's pictures in motion. Okay, something go, they're not real pictures, but they're pictures in motion, they're depicting motion, that's all that is. And so they say, I think film started in a carnival setting. It was
Yeah,
like some
yeah.
sort of thing where you walked
Yeah,
in
man.
and you
You set
looked
up
at a thing,
chairs,
and
it's
it's like,
on
okay, yeah,
projected on some
nowadays, yeah,
blanket.
some
Yeah, yeah.
snob would be like, what the hell is this?
Totally,
Some
totally,
sort of
totally,
carnival show.
totally.
And like, yeah, but that carnival show led to this epic event. And then also the
Yeah.
nostalgia is, I don't know if it's an egregore. Nostalgia is a potent, potent thing. It sits in your head, very close to you, yet very far. It's not what you remember it to be. It manipulates you to feel better. That's like the beauty of nostalgia is it feels like you think about it and you're like, oh, I feel so good. And you look back on that and you go, it was probably not even like that exactly. You go back and watch that thing that you loved and you're like, oh, that was good, but it wasn't how I remember it. The way I remembered it was better than the way like what I just saw, right? And so I think like with these cinema things, yeah, there's this nostalgia component about everything that's just like for these people who experienced that way, where it was like the movie house as a piece of architecture was truly unique, just like the theater was truly unique. I mean, it was like, thank God somebody made this to give us a sense of this feeling. Okay, but now we've entered the slop era, like you said, and it's coming in at a high speed rate. That's what we live with. And that thing that we have now entertains us to a degree. It can entertain us for 15 seconds, can entertain us for an hour and a half, 2 hours on the plane. It is what it is, but it's gone from, it's the bell curve, right? So it started in the circus, it went up to the highest level of the art, like, the Cinerama Dome. Now we come back to on your toilet, and
Yeah.
that's where we are. You
So
got to deal with it.
so do you think then almost hearing the devil's advocate position like maybe we need some kind of like what's like a speedometer, a speed gauge, what the what's the thing in a car that prevents you from going too fast? Like maybe we need these like museums and buildings that only like it's a funnel, like it only allows certain amount of movies a day that you can see at a cinema, and in a museum they have open and they have operating hours, and a studio has like people and they can only release so many movies. I mean, is that kind of like limiting factor important? Like do we need to have some kind of new like modern version of the cinema for like all the AI content that's coming out where like or is that going to be influencers? Like is that like tastemakers? Is that
Yeah, we need to be fascist artists, essentially, right? No, I mean, I think on some level, right, like that's where we get like that kind of mentality is a form of yeah, artistic fascism, right?
mm,
We need to get rid of the bad art houses and
mm,
only have the good art
mm,
houses because this is what the antidote to the world
mm.
because everyone is being fed crap. Yeah, someone's gonna come along eventually and do that,
They're doing it
probably,
in
right?
LA.
You know,
They have
right.
non AI film festivals.
Okay,
Justine
yeah,
Bateman
right.
is yeah
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's, respect to her,
yeah
but
same. I
she
like her a lot and
obviously
yeah
has a really strong opinion
yeah
about this.
she does.
But she's throwing the baby out with the
I
bathwater. But
agree
you know
because this
what?
helps independent filmmakers. I don't
Right.
understand. She's angry at the wrong side. It's like this helps independent artists. You know, this
Right.
creates a level playing field with studios.
Right. But it hurts other independent artists who have spent their time and hours and they feel like it's being
Mm,
impeded upon. So
mm,
that's the way I think is what reveals when people take that sentiment to me is you feel threatened. That's how I'm feeling this. Okay, but you should admit that you feel threatened.
mm,
You feel like somebody is taking something away from you. I feel bad. I get that idea. But let's be real and pull it back. Like there's bad and good of all of it. I've never met like I don't know what the studios are doing. I don't know what they're planning behind scenes.
yeah.
I think it's possible that things just get out of control and they will just generate things that continue down the path of the same sort of limited uh limited work that doesn't expand upon bigger ideas and they're going to keep trying to it's like soap operas or whatever people like soap operas so it's just going to they are probably trying to make that but then I also still believe there are people who want things to come out that feel artistic and expressive. And so it's going to be a mix of all that. I don't think one studio is trying to, screw over the world. But again, we're living in a world right now, especially with the topics that I deal with. It's like the way people obsess about like the Illuminati and everyone's against you
Mm,
and they got all this and they're going to screw you and they're going to take you down. That's how they're looking at this. It's like it's another extension of the techno rulers of the world who are trying to da da da. And it's like, oh my God. I mean, the fantastical, talk about imagination, right? Like people are just coming up with all this stuff. And the world is too disorganized for all that, like it's feeding off of people's, the capitalist desires to kind of succeed in this world, to create things, to make ideas. These other people with money come in and try to fund this stuff. Suddenly it grows into something that has potential. And then everyone's sitting there going like, okay, is it going to do something? And then we wait and find out. Chances are they thought we were going to be 3D printing our toothbrushes, and we're not. Okay?
right,
No one's
right.
3D printing a thing.
You're right.
I
You're
rarely
so
meet
right.
people who 3D print anything,
You're right.
you know? So it's just going to be that way. In 10 years, I always look at these, when I start with a piece of technology, I say, start using it like it's been 10 years. Don't get caught up in the beginning
Yes.
phase. Start like it's already been around. It's like, who cares? Don't think about it all like in that emotional way. And that's what other people want to do.
Whoa, that's so important. Think about. Will you repeat that? Use the technology as if.
When you approach a new technology, use it as if it's been around for 10 years. Try to put yourself beyond the moment of the tech and realize that in 10 years, no one cares about it that like that. Like it's just something that, oh yeah, you know how to do that. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Can I help? Can you help me get this job done or not? I need to figure this out. That's it. I mean, and like everybody else it gets so caught up in the moment. You got to live in the moment. I get it, but I don't know. I guess you're dealing with the birds, talking, and you're influenced by all that. I've had people message me, go, how do you keep making stuff when people are so against it? That means that there's a lot of creative people that are unwilling to do this
Yeah.
because they're seeing the vitriol online, and so they're not willing to risk the expression. I'm not like that. I already stand on real work, real sculpture. I
Stand
just
on
you
business.
yeah, I'm just standing on business on it. You can't take it away from me. I've already gotten the approval that I need in this world from the different creative people that
Hell
I look
yeah.
to, and the rest, like, come on, get out of here. It's so outrageous. And a lot of these people aren't even artists. But you know what? Sometimes it's kind of fun to have some type of energy like this. I just hope these people, these fanatics, don't take it to the next level. Like these people send me messages like that feel threatening. Like that's and it's like, wow, this is crazy. I've never ever done anything like this. Like 3D printing, it was still like a thing where it's like, oh, but it wasn't like this. This is like it's taking our jobs. It's gonna come after us. So you can write that in a sci-fi novel because we already have. So we've already been programmed to know the reality. Well, I watched Terminator. Oh, I watched it. Okay, really? If you watched Terminator, it ain't Terminator right now. I mean, that's not the same thing. Like, let's have a little bit more like humor in all of it. There's it's a lot. It's not as serious as those movies depict it. It's more uh of a mess. It's more kind of this and that, and but people are creating these doomsday scenarios, and people are so vulnerable right now, and they just believe these things, and they're just like running with it, and it's sad. It's kind of scary, but it's sad. But yeah, back to that point, approach the technology like it's always been around, and if you do that, you don't get caught up in some of the early stage um, rumination that some people have when dealing with things. You just think of it like it just does not matter.
Hmm.
The
It's
tool is not the outcome. Yeah.
uh, I think it's also interesting because one thing I share with you in common is having having ideas that have been like I just made a short film that's from an idea that I had 20 years ago that I've held on to,
Mm, yeah.
and it's like there are it's so what's really funny with AI is like people using AI to make like high technology like cyberpunk stuff because AI is like a new technology, like it's very on the
Hmm, hmm,
nose,
hmm,
whereas there are other people like you that have these interests for a long time, and
hmm,
you use this new tool to investigate those interests versus like making more tech demos, and like it's like apparently it's kind of like this futuristic, we've been told this is going to happen in the future, so everyone's kind of seeing it as this futuristic thing,
hmm,
when in
hmm.
fact it can be this tool to investigate like the oldest traditions of humanity and
Mm.
spirituality.
Totally, totally, totally. I think that's on the nose because that definitely exposes something about the way I think, right? Is like, yeah, my mind is looking to the past and going like, why is this not so different than something we've already seen? I love the idea of the muse, like this idea that a lot of the great artists that I've looked up to, sometimes at the point and the pinnacle of their greatest work, you'll say, how do you come up? They ask them in interviews, how did you come up with it? I don't know. It just came to me. It came down from somewhere else. They always displace it, actually. It's not me. It's a higher power. Okay, that becomes interesting because suddenly, wait a second, the expression that you love, this guy who made it saying, I actually got it from somewhere else, and it's just coming through me. That reminds me of a digitized version of AI, right? So in the same way now people say we're living in a simulation. Okay, that's what they were saying before, just they weren't using those words, right? So I'm thinking of things like, yeah, in that way where it's like, oh, now we have the Oracle, or now we have this thing that can talk back to us. Is it real consciousness? Well, sure. No, it's not. It's not biological consciousness. It is what it is. It's language. All you are is language. If you didn't have it, you'd be nothing. You'd be able to express, you'd be able to make sounds. I have a baby and it's like, you can make sounds and movements. But once you have language, suddenly you become way more powerful, right? As humanity, we become more powerful.
And
So
also limited, right?
language,
Because
yeah,
language also
limited
creates
and
limits. You can't think
totally,
beyond, yeah, like, yeah.
exactly. It's a code base that is just like, the digital allegory where it's like you have limitations, but you now have new potentials
Hmm.
to express. And the bigger a language is, the more it can express itself. You compare that to a different language, and that language doesn't have the same words that can express what this language has, because this language has 1 million words and this language has 100,000 words. But maybe someone says, actually, this one's better because it's limited, whatever. These kind of ideas come up. Um, so I'm thinking of it that way, where now we have this sort of oracular mechanism that is in tune with people talk about the Akashic records, or this spirituality, they talk about it. But then when it comes to AI, they don't want to get there. But AI is kind of like a version of that. It's built on everything that we have created. That's amazing. That's what, in ways, the story of Babel, the language that man made that was then taken away, it got too powerful because you were able to create something that unified everything. So to me, AI has that potential. It has this potential to unify all the work that our predecessors did. And people today want to go and be freedom fighters against all that and go, oh, you're taking away from it. And meanwhile, they have nothing to do with that. Like, these people who want to live forever by their work are now living forever.
Hmm.
Okay? The actors that have been in work that, maybe that's controversial, but one day they're going to look back probably and they're going to be grateful that they did, those people did all the work that they did, because it helped create this thing that then led to new creations, new opportunities, new momentum, new interests. Uh, the fact that you and I think, are even talking right now, it just shows, like, I was doing art for, 10 odd years. It's just like a standstill. You start doing this for a few months, and now we're talking. You got other people that, like, now we're talking about real momentum, real, like, something fresh, something new, something that we don't even know where it's going to go. That's what we need. All that other stuff will never be like them. We'll never be like Kubrick. We'll never be like Coppola. We'll never be like the people who put in the work like that. But we respect them. But we're not. I'm never gonna make something like that at that potential. Uh, the handmade nature like that. I'm never gonna be able to live up to that, and I know that. But I'm moving forward here, and, like, it's just a video. It's just an idea. Now that's just what it is. It's okay. But in the meantime, I'm going to try to put some heavy stuff into it. Okay. I'm going to try to, subvert the audience. I'm going to try to get some deep ideas in there that I think are hiding in these books, and get people going on. It's a very niche, nerdy, I think, realm. I think most people who are into this kind of stuff are a bit nerdy,
Oh, yeah.
but guess what? It's all been pulled from all these Marvel movies, all that stuff. They're pulling from some of the same reference points. They just do it in, like, a simplified way. Or one way I like to look at is, everybody drives around in all these cars. Start thinking about what those cars are named after.
Hmm.
Start thinking about why a car has that name. Who is that name? I mean, these cars are loaded with these, like, deep ideas, and it's just a name. They don't really care about, like, the backdrop of what that name is even referring to, some god or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's a car.
Yeah, yeah.
But, with this, I want to actually bring it out. Let's actually dive into some of these deeper ideas, and chew on it. And yeah, we don't have the limitations of, like, having to just strip it down to meaning nothing. We can kind of, like, get into the heaviness. It's deep. These classic books, these ideas that people were talking about, are so crazy. My favorite book, right? So over the last year, I read to the bet on tape. I didn't, again, on tape, not really. I listened to Ovid Metamorphosis, and it's amazing. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. There's so much stuff in there that you have to do the work to really know some of the references. But man, once you do it, it's like it connects you back to reality in a way that feels it feels lively again. It just there's something that we're missing because I think we live in this kind of post AD Abrahamic context, but you go into antiquity and you look at the works that were the laid and talked about before, and you will find, I think, a new connection with life in a way that is profound, and it brings you back to today and yesterday. And I think it's the thing that is missing. A lot of people grow up, at least around me, they always say they love Greek mythology. I love Greek mythology, but they haven't done that extra work. And you do that extra work, your world opens up. You see it all. You see the archetypes. You read someone like Carl Jung and how he talks about these images and these references. You have to go and look at those references and read about them. Then the world just opens. Suddenly you're at the museum and you see everything. Now you're a part of it. That's what people need, but they've been held from, I think, knowing these things because it's deemed irrelevant to the world that we live in. But it's not. You can find it is the poetry, it is the magic, it is the stories that tie us to this really, really deep connection that we all have. It's so crazy how far back certain elements of like Western psychology and ideas go that it just blows your mind. And
Whoa.
so that's what I want to get into this work as much as I can here and there. But even like in the first piece I did when I started doing these videos, I started doing something called Index 8. And Index 8 was a direct response to, my experience in LA, where it's like, so this is the power, like we were talking about AI. What can you do? What can you say that you wouldn't be able to say with necessarily a studio, a group of writers, everybody involved telling you you can't say this, can't say. So this was the first idea I had where it's like everybody in LA wants to deal with this homeless idea, but do you really? And if we do, are you going to face, like I said earlier, the darkness and the light at the same time? Like that's the key. Can you face the harsh reality of what has to be done in order to get to a place that actually solves a problem? And that's a part of society that I don't think we want to go there because ultimately, at least in LA and definitely in America, we've become very pious, but we're pious not built into a religious context, but a cultural context of wanting to do the right thing, to be good people. In LA, we don't want to. We feel bad doing things or telling somebody to do this or you because we don't want to be told what to do. So he should be allowed to do what he wants to do. And so we all have that sentiment where we don't want to step on each other's toes. But then it gets darker. Then we start to see the undercurrent and we start to see what it turns into. And then we're faced with it out here and what are we doing? We're not doing anything. And so with that first story, which I didn't really get to expand much because I didn't feel like people were gravitating to it yet, it was like that idea. What happens when you actually start taking these people and putting them in places? Now we've talked about that, but then what really happens? What are the dynamics? And so it became a whole world to me just off of that one idea of what would actually happen if you did this. I'm not coming from a place where I want to do this or I want to be responsible for this, but it's sort of in a Philip K. Dick way, an alternate history way where it's they do this and this is what happens. And suddenly a lot expands from that. You start to realize like, holy crap, like maybe this is even just thinking about the story, it reminded me of aspects of the Bible where it's like modern, the sort of the Christian ethos to help the lower man or to get to save and to heal that person. Then suddenly homelessness has to do with medicine. And then suddenly everything has to do with how do you heal? How do you heal the mind? How do you heal this part? Then there's going to be different, someone's going to take a scientific route. Someone's going to take a more hard line route where it's like, no, I learned from being straight edge that this is the only path, the abandoned, whatever. And so this is how I'm world building this all out, but it's all coming from this very real experience that I'm seeing in LA and going like, let's make a world to solve our neuroses so that we can put it on paper or put it out there in front of us and judge it. Just the same way, I guess people were saying, hey, Terminator shows that AI is going to be bad. Okay, whatever. But this is my expression of, hey, what would be a world that a dystopian world that we would live in where we actually confront this head on and we actually do something that feels like the wrong thing to do and to see it and well, this part of it actually, I kind of get it. This part, no, that would be bad. What if we tried to do it, but we avoided that? So this is the power of motion pictures.
Dude.
I guess I can't call it film, but it's a
Yeah,
secondary layer.
sounds
It's
amazing. I
reality
mean,
projected.
look, I mean, let's any producers watching, there's your pitch, man. That's epic. That sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing that, or you
Yeah,
know,
I want to come back to that one for
yeah, for
sure.
sure. I
But
mean, that's
yeah,
amazing. I already I predict success. I see it already existing.
thank you,
Yeah, man, that's really
thank you,
cool. It's
man.
such a great idea. And
Yeah.
it's time has come. People are ready for something like that, like kind of grounded sci-fi, like you're saying, that kind of alternate reality Philip K. Dick was so good at, this astute
Yeah, he was
social
so
commentary.
good at it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. His ability, like when people say sci-fi, people think of one thing, but
Right.
when you read a few of his books, you start to realize, like, you come out of it, at least for me, I go, oh, it's interesting. Is this really sci-fi?
It's
Is this
wild,
sci-fi? I
dude.
guess
It's
it is,
wild.
right? But it's
Yeah.
alternate realities, it's alternate projections of reality, and that's the power of the image. Um, and the image is extreme. I was just reading yesterday about like the Aegis and the Aegis bearing shield of Achilles or something. It's like it almost is maybe in the text saying that it's projecting images or it has this ability to project images, and through that projection, it affects the viewer, right? And so it's like that's the power of the painting. Now they move that, and obviously that was the beauty of film, but now we're in a place where the limitations of the physicality of film are gone. And so, yeah, you're not going to be what's his name,
Yeah.
Werner
Herzog.
Herzog,
Yeah.
going down to the jungle and doing all that stuff. But then someone's got a problem with that too. Oh, what is this guy doing over there in the jungle, taking advantage of these people? He's abusing them, and so it's like you can't win. Even they had a struggle. Even they had people had problems with what they were doing. Everything has a problem.
Well, I mean, I think to kind of wrap it up, like I like to ask about like how you see the future of AI, and everyone has different answers, but you kind of suggesting something which or tell me if I'm wrong, you correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is like that AI is this new tool for humans to play with the aggregate of civilization and culture to create new forms. So the more
Mhm.
you know about art and science and every discipline you can imagine, whatever appeals to one's own personal interests, you take all of that and it allows you to condense it and play and create you know new forms. I mean, that seems to be the future. It isn't like some new kind of movie or some that you now watch on a headset, or a new. It's like this new way of communicating through images and music and technology and 3D printing and expressing ourselves through new. I mean, literally speaking through images and communicating through different forms. Like that's what it allows us to do, is communicate in new ways, like almost like you were saying about language. The language is expanding and our ability to express ourselves is expanding individually and hopefully collectively then as well. What do you think about that?
No, I think I completely agree with it, and I I think you said it, and I think the way I could put it is, yeah, it's not the past or the future. the every night you, well, not every night, but every night, many nights you go to bed, you dream. And I think dreams are probably more personal and more important to you in your life than even a movie might be. When it all is said and done and you're thinking back on your life and you're remembering that dream that you had. And they are just images. Dreams are, a relationship with imagery in the mind, and they leave an impression, and they can manipulate you, they can inspire you, they can haunt you. And now we have a new tool to spread dreams. That's it. And whether they're 15 seconds or 2 hours or whatever, maybe longer, that is now the new world that people need to get ready for, is a high volume of this new form of production and expression. And through all of it, there will be some that break through, that leave such a mark on people's psyche that they stand the test of time. And that's all it really is. It's just the final product in the end. That's all you really have. When you go to the movie theater, you don't get the pre-course dinner where they explain every way that they made the movie before you watch the movie, right? You just watch the movie. You're not finding out how the hot dog was made. So in the end, it's just that final piece. And that's why AI is so threatening, because it gets there faster. It gets to that final output faster. And I understand that. But remember, coming from a creator myself, I know the limitations. I know when it doesn't sound as natural and as real. I get all that, but it is not enough to stop me from having fun and expressing myself and getting dreams out and getting ideas out that are spontaneous in the moment, gone, gone with the wind. And if somebody registers with it, it's beautiful. That's all you can ask for. And you have to, I think for most artists, that's also a tip, is like, you just have to keep moving. You have to realize that some of the things that you always thought people were going to gravitate towards are not exactly always that case. So that's why an artist is perpetually in motion, and you have to just keep going and hope that by being true and focusing on the content, not how it's made, but what it's saying and what it's about, it will push through. And sometimes it doesn't have to be serious. It will push through. E-bombs world. I mean, my generation, we talk about, remember that clip on E-bombs world? I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
It's
That's why
huge.
we're messed
Yeah.
up, is
Yeah.
because we have that mix. We'll talk to you about 2001 Space Odyssey and how beautiful and cinematic, and then we're going to tell you about this ridiculous video that we all remember seeing, that was 1 minute long, on some horrible website back in the day. This is the world we live in. But those images have this, it's an equal playing field to be imprinted on the mind. And so now it's out in the open, and we're going to be making with the tools, we're going to be going at a high rate, and we're going to get to something that I think is going to start to interest people, because it's going to feel, once it starts to feel different than something that everybody has already seen, then we'll start to move forward, because the debate won't be about how it's impeding on the old system. It will be so clearly a new system that people are going to be like, this is pretty sick. I gotta go. I gotta go check this out. And that's it. And then we're gonna move forward. Um, but humanity will never be separated from any of these things. We're the ones putting ideas into the prompting. That's the way the computer will do it all. But like, at that point, like it's just going to, there still always needs to be some form of magician down below that is actually kind of doing the trick. Otherwise, I think people do have a lack of connection with the character, or the person that's grounding. That is some sort of human nature. When you go on Netflix, you see all the images, and a lot of times it's the face of the person
Mm.
over, and you're just looking at faces and faces, and you're like, that's not a cool image. That's like the worst image from the movie. But they know over there, they know that people are just like, the consumer is just caught up in something else that the director is not caught up with. And that's the dirty dance of art, is that we're not thinking what you're not thinking what we're thinking, but we live off of each other. And it's this weird thing, you know? So yeah, I don't know. That's a good good place to end it. I
That
know
is
I'm
a good
jumping
place to
around,
end. That's a great place to
but
end.
there's something good in here. So
Oh man, there's gold in here. This was fire,
there's
dude.
gold.
This was
You gotta
great,
find
man.
it. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. This
yeah,
is
man. I hope to do this again.
yeah, absolutely. We should, man. It's
Yeah,
exciting. What excites me too, I'm thinking like, I've been talking to so many cool artists, and it's exciting that like they'll be able to potentially like see all these other voices and like, oh yeah, connect, like start to see this like this community of really cool, interesting people.
yes,
It's
I think what you're doing is important because, like, you get to meet the people behind the ideas. Right
yeah,
now, people are driving cars and not seeing behind the windshield, and that's another thing, is just like that. I've been thinking about lately, is maybe is the essence of life, is that step back from the human to the car to the human, the car to the human to the computer. That divergence and that lack, that shield between us, is that thing that when the veil's pulled back and we realize that, oh, that's another human there. Like now I kind of feel embarrassed in the way that I was talking to this thing, like,
totally, totally,
and I see these comments that they feel like they're not connecting with the fact that there's a real person back here.
totally. Yeah,
Now I choose to like put my name on the thing. A lot of people, use pseudonyms and stuff like that, which again, from my experience with art, you're always going to go back to your real name because you're going to want credit when you want it and you need it. So you got to stand on what you're doing, not be ashamed of it, and just go with the flow. You're not, well, at least hopefully no one's going to do anything serious. And the more people see others who are working in this field and the way that they're thinking, I cross my fingers that more people will be like, oh, okay, well, he's not who I thought he was. I don't know who they think, they think I'm the worst person of all time, from based on some of these people, but no, I mean, like, so many of us, I think, are just excited, amped to express. Some people, who are like, you have been in the business, who, like, people are grounded. Okay, we're not a meme. We're real, and like, we just want to have fun with some of this stuff. Like, we want to express ourselves, and like, that's it. That's
hell yeah.
it. No one is trying to say, I'm not, just because I said it's directed by or whatever, it doesn't mean I'm trying to say I'm the best. Like, it's just an aesthetic. It's a part of
Of
the culture
course,
of
of course, of
video and
course.
film, and
Yeah.
like, that's how things are. Like,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
that's
isn't
what we're doing.
the font you use? I think is like the John Carpenter font, right? I mean, it's like, or
Probably, but
yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
even
aesthetic.
know.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's all
I don't
like,
even know.
I
Like,
get
it's
it. I
just,
get it. It's like
yeah.
other taking the pieces and assembling the whole. It's yeah, I
Yeah,
get
it's
it.
like,
Yeah,
it's like when you go to the market and you pick out flowers. Some
totally,
people go
totally,
in
totally,
and
man.
they take 2 hours, but boom, I see it. I'm picking that one. Let's go. And that's the way I'm thinking about these things. And that way, it really feels like a expression of myself. And you can dissect it. You can leave comments. You can hate on it. You can do whatever you want, but try to have like something to chew on. Like, actually try to like leave. It doesn't need to be constructive, but like, give something more than just that you just hate AI
All right,
art just because it's slop.
everyone, you heard it here first. Alex wants thoughtful haters.
Yeah, I want thoughtful haters. Like, I want some good stuff. I see some haters. I forget which one it was. I said that one's kind of good. I like that take. That's a good take.
Hell
So
yeah.
I'm open to it. Bring it on. But it is what it is. It creates that engagement. It creates people to have
Oh
like a
yeah.
discussion. And in this world, maybe that's more than you can ask for because most people are not interested in many things. I did the abstract art and the sculpture for years, and it's nice, and you get some, a certain type of people who are interested in that, but it does not generate the interest that this does. This is a far more uh, all-encompassing expression that brings a lot of different people in from all over the world, all over the world. And like, sometimes I think that's part of it, is like, some people who don't speak English, like, the way that they're kind of just maybe focusing on what is being said, not necessarily exactly how it's said or whatever, they're kind of gravitating, oh, I like that idea. I like that topic. So I like this thing. So it's just a whole new world that we're heading into that is definitely more inclusive in a way of everybody, and it's going to lead to better things. The more every time I make something, I'm trying to take it to the next level. You probably are too. We're just always trying to make sacrifices, but also push the agenda with everything that we make. That's what we're trying to do. Like that's all, you know. So
Hell
there you go.
yeah. All right, man.
All right,
I
man.
love it, dude.
All
We'll do it
right.
again. We'll talk soon.
All right. Peace.
Sweet. Peace, dude.
Send good vibes to everyone. All right. Thank you.
Likewise. Later, dude.
Bye.
Bye.